Welcome back, Mando.
Ho, ho, ho. Greetings, Bucketheads. Mayvar Tagar. Welcome to our 349th, obnoxiously, obliviously occupying episode of Mandovision, and I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you so much for checking out our small independent Star Wars podcast. We are so glad you're here. Hit us up on those socials at Mando_Vision on X and Insta, Mandovision at Blue Sky, and of course, you can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we are back for another exciting installment of our Star Wars Rebels rewatch series, and we've got an episode that I think this one really kind of like helps set the table for heading into like our sort of big push to the end of the series. We're going to talk about a lot of things in it. It's a fast-paced episode. You can say, you could pass the buck and kind of like diminish the episode by saying it's just there to set things up. But hey, you got to set it up before you can knock it down, right? So that's what we do here in this episode of Rebels. But I still think it's an entertaining episode. I think it's a important episode for Ezra and his growth to see, while he's been out in the galaxy, learning and growing and becoming his own person, things have changed a lot on Lothal since he left. And sort of just how much the Empire has sunk its fangs into Lothal. So we're going to talk about those things and get into some of the specifics of the episode, because it is a fun one. All right, so I think we should go ahead and just kind of get the particulars out of the way for this episode, and then we're going to dive on in. All right, this is Star Wars Rebels, Season 4, Episode 5, The Occupation. Original air date October 30th, 2017. It's written by Chris Yost, directed by Stuart Lee. Our primary cast... let's do the plot first. Ezra and the Ghost crew are sent back to Lothal when a new Imperial threat rises. Our primary cast for this week: Taylor Gray is Ezra Bridger. Vanessa Marshall is Harrison Dula. Freddie Prinze Jr. is Kanan Jarrus. Tia Sircar is Sabine Wren. Steve Blum is Zeb Aurelios. Dave Filoni's Chopper. Greg Ellis is Baron Valen Rudor. Keith Serbakicha, I know I said that wrong, I'm sorry, sir, is back as Vizago. Josh Brenner is Erskine Samaj. Dante Basco is Kai Jai Kell. David Oluwalo is Agent Kell as Genevieve O'Reilly is Mon Mothma. D. Bradley Baker is back as Rex. And, of course, Clancy Brown returns as Ryder Azadi. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's get into it. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. And let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
So, a couple things really quick. This is somewhat of a unique episode of the show in that it's got a lot of callbacks to things that happened, characters from episodes in very, very early seasons of the show. Of particular note is, of course, the return of Baron Valen Rudor. Someone we've seen sporadically in the early seasons of the show, and now all of a sudden, instead of being a TIE pilot, we see him running a bar, which is interesting. I wonder how his I can't even speculate on Rudor, but again, it's interesting to see him come back. And then, of course, Jai Kell, who is from when Ezra infiltrated the Imperial Academy on Lothal, and they were in competitions with each other, and Ezra helped him get out. So interesting callbacks there, things you may or may not remember from early on in the series. But the episode opens up. We're on the Ghost. We are returning to Yavin 4, and Ezra's asleep in the cockpit, and he's having a Force vision, and it wakes him up and scares him, and he yells out "No!" And we find out that he saw flashes of Old Joe and Ryder, and they need help. There's something going on in Lothal and people are suffering. And Hera tries to, I don't know if reassure is the right word, but she points out that like people everywhere are suffering right now under the yoke of the Empire. And so we have to be patient. Like, yes, we were going to go back to Lothal because Ezra's still upset about that. That since Thrawn's ambush of the fleet, they have not kept their word and been able to return to Lothal to aid in liberating the planet from the Empire. And that bothers Ezra. But Hera stresses patience. But as we return to Yavin, he is summoned before Mon Mothma, where they had received a interrupted transmission from Ryder Azadi on Lothal, informing Rebel Command that they were preparing new tests of their new and improved TIE Defender on Lothal, and now would be a good time for some help, probably. But the message is interrupted, and Mon Mothma is somewhat persuaded to send aid, and we know Ezra wants to go, but the rest of the team, of course, volunteers. And Mon Mothma relents because she knows how well they all work together. And it's also then when Ezra informs Mon Mothma that he's going and he's staying. And because she warns that, listen, all reports suggest that Lothal is under complete Imperial lockdown. And just because you get into Lothal does not mean that the rebels can extract you out of Lothal. So yeah, and Ezra's like, hey, I've been thinking about this, and I'm staying. It doesn't matter. I'm there. I'm going back to help my people. And that's kind of where we open the episode. And that's also where we reconnect with Vizago, who is, again, another character that we're calling back to from early in the run of Rebels. He's something of a smuggler, a pirate, a thief, whatever you want to call him. But a Devronian who seems to have Imperial permits to get in and out of the blockade at Lothal. So they cut a deal. Rex and Callus are going to take the Ghost and get out of there. Meanwhile, the rest of the team will go with Vizago on his ship to get past the blockade because they're going to give him puffer pigs. Remember the puffer pigs? Again, another callback to something that happened early in the show when Lando was hanging out on the series. And Vizago informs us that Lando made a financial killing selling these puffer pigs to the mining guild, and now Vizago is going to try and get a piece of it. So he's blown away that Ezra and the team found some puffer pigs for him to sell. So in exchange for these puffer pigs, he will fly them past the Imperial blockade. Well, and it sounds good until they get to Lothal, and Vizago transmits the codes, and they're valid. But the Imperials do a thermal scan, and they realize that there are way more people on the ship than there should be. So as Vizago lands, the ship is put in lockdown, and a search party is deployed to inspect the ship. They let out the puffer pigs. The puffer pigs cause some chaos amongst the stormtroopers, and they're able to sneak off the ship. Vizago had a chance to join them, but the financial gain of the puffer pig was too much, so he returned for them and was then caught when a puffer pig inflated and held him against the wall. Somewhat amusing. But now we get a chance to kind of go around Lothal and see just how much has changed. And before they landed, as the ship comes out of hyperspace above Lothal, it is one of the first things that Ezra notices is just like, look at the sky. It looks like it's on fire. His planet's changed so much in a short period of time since the Empire's gotten there. And it's a stark contrast to the lush planet that we know from season 1. And I think it shakes Ezra very, very deeply to see his world in this condition, in this state. And he feels like he's responsible because he hasn't come back to help. He thinks Ezra, as we know, Ezra puts a lot on his shoulders. To think that he could have prevented this is, we know, folly, but this is who Ezra is. He believes that he could have helped prevent this sooner had he not gone gallivanting across the galaxy on these adventures with the rebellion. But we know it's probably for naught. And now we're on the ground, and we get to move around and see more of the Imperial presence, the occupation, the titular occupation of Lothal, the curfews, the way that the citizens aren't on the streets, the way they live in fear. And they try to go to Old Joe's bar and Ezra talks about how it was back in the day when it was the last place Imperials would ever go because they knew they weren't welcome there. So in Ezra's mind, it's still like this holdout of the old days where they'll be safe. They'll be amongst friends, right? Not so fast, because we go down to a bar that's playing the Imperial March, and Baron Reuter's behind the bar, and it's just a whole thing. Not good. Now, at this point, our heroes are split up. It's Sabine and Ezra in the bar in Chopper's upstairs. They decide they got to get out of the bar. It's not a good environment to be in, and they decide they're going to walk away. But Rudor, hey, wait a second, man. You haven't paid for them drinks yet, man. But luckily, Jai Kell is there and sort of provides some cover, pays for the drinks, and they think they can get out of there. And they sort of do. They meet up with everybody else. But, of course, chaos ensues because they're out after curfew. They are recognized as rebels. And thus begins the action-packed pursuit of them in the sewers beneath. I don't know what town we're in, but we'll just say Lothal. All right? I don't know if we're in the capital or not. It doesn't seem like we're in the capital at this point. But we go into the sewers, and the sewers have been tagged, right? Now, we also find out that Jai Kell was in Old Joe's bar hoping that one day Ezra would show up. That's why he was kind of hanging out there. The only person who was a non-Imperial. Ryder had put him there to be like a sort of a lookout. And now he's going to try and guide them through the sewers. And we see Sabine's symbol, right? The symbol of what will become the symbol of the rebellion, painted in various areas along the tunnels as sort of a way to point to where they need to go to find Ryder. Except the stormtroopers are in hot pursuit. There are Imperial probe droids, stormtroopers. There's a tank earlier that destroys their speeder. It's a fun action sequence. I do really enjoy it. And the stuff in the tunnels is really, really good. It's all pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of like really interesting things in there as far as like dialogue goes, other than the fact that like the Imperial presence on Lothal is quite serious. It's quite intense and it's quite legit. And our heroes are in a bind. A great sequence going up a tunnel with a ladder. I mean, there's good stuff. There's good stuff to watch in this episode. It is fast-paced. It is quick. But our heroes do eventually make it up and away from the Imperials with the aid of Ryder Azadi, who's waiting at the top of the tunnel to take them away in a speeder out into the remote parts of the planet so they can formulate their plan of attack. And Ryder is confident that, hey, you know what? Once the rest of you rebels get here, this is gonna be a good time. We're gonna take down this base. We're gonna stop these TIE defenders, and we're gonna liberate Lothal. It's gonna be easy peasy lemon squeezy. And that is when Ezra breaks the news that, hey, Ryder, it's just us, but we got this. And Ryder's like, well, you know what? Let's go check out the TIE Defender tomorrow, and we'll reassess your level of confidence. And that's sort of where we end the episode. Again, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty fast. It's pretty quick. One of the things I glossed over was there's a nice moment between Hera and Kanan while they're hiding from some Imperials who were looking for them on the streets. And it's a really touching moment between the two characters where Kanan sort of admits that, hey, we haven't had much time alone in a while. It's nice to be close to you again. And Hera pulls his, like, they're wearing these like crazy disguises. We did not talk about the disguises that each of them are all in, but they're in these disguises. And Kanan's wearing like these weird sunglasses. And Hera takes off the sunglasses, and we see his like fuzzed out eyes, and whited out eyes might be a more accurate way to put that. And Kanan says something like, "I wish I could see you," and Hera replies that, "You've always been able to see me." And it's just like this like sweet little moment, and they're about to kiss, and then of course trouble arises, and it's time to go back on the run again. But a really sweet moment for those two characters in a season that we know bad things are coming for that relationship. No spoilers, but you already know. It doesn't matter. So I wanted to sort of talk about that moment because, again, this team is a family dynamic, right? And so we have mom and dad having that nice quiet moment before they're about to be torn apart from each other. nice stuff, good stuff. And it's going to be heartbreaking in a few episodes. So let's get the Kleenex ready now, friends. But yeah, again, underlining that sort of connection between the two characters, the love they feel for each other, and sort of the trouble they have being able to be with each other because of this rebellion that they find themselves in, this battle they find themselves in to upend an empire that is oppressing people across the galaxy. A nice moment for them. Loved it. But it's a good growing episode for Ezra, too. Again, the realization that things on Lothal have changed quite dramatically. But Ezra's grown a lot since he left. But coming back to the situation seems to throw him off. And, he talks about how Saul was right. And he seems to despair, saying that Saul was right, that it's over, we've lost, it's done. And Sabine has to sort of walk him back. And Zeb sort of has to help walk him back. And be like, listen, maybe it is over, but we're going to go down fighting. And we're going to try and do the right thing here and help these people and free these people and take down the Empire. So you got to believe. And Ezra comes back to it quickly, but that moment of despair and seeing how quickly he's able to come out of it with the help of his friends, with the help of his siblings, again, going back into that family dynamic. So good stuff, really solid stuff. I like a lot of what's going on in this episode. It's subtle, it's not overt, but good stuff. And again, it's kind of a fun episode in the sense of all the callbacks to characters that we haven't seen in a long, long time. So fun in that regard. I give it 7.5 buckets. Again, it is a lot of table setting, but it's good table setting. And we're going to pay it off pretty quick because if memory serves, the next episode's a pretty good one too. So I think that's going to be it. All right. Let's keep rolling with the Star Wars Rebels rewatches. We'll be doing the bonus shows for breaking news and other good stuff. Stay tuned for those. All right, Buckethead Nation, I want to thank you again for being the amazing supporters that you are. You keep me going every single week, and I'm so glad you're here listening to the show. Go out there, continue to be great Star Wars fans, kind, supportive, respectful, understanding, tolerant, and awesome. We'll be back next week with another exciting installment of our Star Wars Rebels rewatch. Stay tuned for bonus shows, and find us on the socials at Mando_Vision on X and Insta, Mandovision at Blue Sky. You can email me at mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Another reminder to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. And if your podcasting platform allows it, hey. Reviews are nice. 5 stars are my favorite. Hit me up with those. Love it. All right, Bucketheads, go out there and be awesome. We'll be back next week. But remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
I find that answer vague and unconvincing.